We want to thank our citizens for joining in tonight, and welcome to the December 14, 2007 City Council meeting. We're going to have our prayer and pledge by Mr. Wade.
Let's pray. Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for blessing us with another day. Lord, we ask you to bless our council. We ask you to bless Murfreesboro. We ask you to just bless our country, bless our president. Most of all, bless our service providers. Lord, let us remember what the season is, and all about giving and all about giving back. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we're going to be graced again tonight by Mr. Tucker, Mr. Greg Tucker, coming up and talking to us. He's our Rutherford County historian, and we'd like to welcome Mrs. Tucker. I got your message. Thank you.
Well, it is the holiday season, so I thought it might be appropriate to look back a few years at what was going on. And, well, I chose December 1946. 1946 was a very important year because it was the first post-war year when Christmas could be planned without the pressure of the rationing, without concerns about the military draft, and no more combat casualties. The City Council in December 1946 voted to permit theaters in the area to show movies on Sunday. They decided that from 2:30 to 6:30 Sunday afternoon, movies could be shown, and from 9 o'clock on, a late show could be done. What's interesting is that the church leaders in the area were unanimously opposed to opening up the theaters on Sundays. But there was a new special interest group in the area. They were the veterans. And the veterans, which quickly developed into a very powerful political group, said, we want to go see the movies on Sunday. If you're curious, the Princes decided that their first Sunday movie would be The Stranger, Edward G. Robinson, Loretta Young, Orson Welles. Over at the Roxy, they were playing Westward Bound with Ken Maynard, Hoot Gibson, and Bob Steele. Out at Middle Tennessee State College, Q.M. Smith, who always read, I understand, the Federal Register, announced that 3 new buildings would be added to the campus, 2 rec centers and an infirmary. He saw in the Federal Register that they were giving away surplus military buildings, and he managed to arrange to have 3 of them dismantled and shipped up here and set up on the campus. The Federal Highway Administration in December 46 announced the route for the new highway from Smyrna to Water Street in Murfreesboro. The Ransom Cotton Gin, the Murfreesboro Electric Department warehouse, and the Young and Ogles lumber yard were going to disappear in order to make way for what became Broad Street. The newest industry in town in December 1946 was the Grapette Bottling Company over on Vine Street, 60 cases per hour, selling for 5 cents a bottle. There was a national group in town, some agricultural experts, who were promoting artificial breeding for our local dairy herds. Local farmers were suspicious of any Yankee proposal. Newest and most talked about item in the city was the new city coin counting and wrapping machine. Those unpopular parking meters were hand counted and hand wrapped up until December 1946. The legislature in December 1946 approved home rule, which meant cities could decide about their own corporate limits, and that cities could then amend their charters without having to go through the state legislature. The first week of December was marked with a coal strike. Bothered everybody because they shut down the railroad. There was a question about whether they could keep Christmas lights on. Fortunately, the head of the United Mine Workers was arrested for fraud on December 8th, and the strike fell apart. A new ordinance from the City Council prohibited dumping in town and Lytle creeks. $50 fine. Interesting that up until that time, the two creeks were part of the waste disposal system for the city. An outfit called Air Utilities, which had taken over the old airport, Sky Harbor, just before the war and was a government contractor. Their two contracts with the government ended. They were repairing planes and cutting graphite for what nobody knew at the time, but they were supplying the graphite for the Oak Ridge nuclear reactors. They were more or less out of business, but they decided to switch their line of business, and they started making knitting machines for the expanding apparel industry in Middle Tennessee. Raleigh Holden Sr., a name many of us know, was in December 1946 selling fireworks at the corner of College and Front Streets. He was a veteran. He apparently did well at that because soon afterwards he opened what is still the oldest business on the square, Holden Hardware, now run, of course, by his son. This one's hard to believe that the city council voted to give city employees a 7.5% increase in salaries. And if you think, though, that they just come through the austerity of the war period, you can see what was going on. Cecil Elrod, who owned the most expensive shop in town, the French shop, was responding to a pin-up demand as a result of rationing women's stockings. And if you really wanted to spoil your woman, you bought her a pair of silk stockings for $3. If you stuck to the rayon, it was $1 a pair. If you ate at a cafe on the square, a breakfast of ham and eggs, 40 cents. If you came by at lunch for the meat and three, the plate lunch for 45 cents. And, of course, coffee was a nickel, all the refills you could handle.
Wow.
The grocery was selling 20 pounds of Florida oranges for $1. Fruitcake was $1 a pound. If you bought 5 pounds of fruitcake, you had a good doorstop.
Nothing's changed.
Well, we have to remember that 1946 was the first year of the baby boom. And in December 1946, the maternity ward and the nursery over at Rutherford Hospital was working beyond capacity, which suggests that maybe those veterans weren't just watching movies. Merry Christmas. I'm glad to see another red sweater. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Merry Christmas to you also. Thank you. And we would also like to welcome the Leadership Rutherford members, and my old boss, Mr. Jason Keeney, is back there. Welcome. For our consent agenda, after we've looked over it, would anyone like to make any changes, pull anything out, or make any comments? If not, can we get a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklett?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Ms. Georgia asks that everyone speaks up so she can pick us up in the minutes, please.
They're not going to hear us unless Rick stops talking.
Okay.
I wonder what you put in my popcorn.
The quick act.
Yeah.
Okay. Now for our minutes, we have 3 sets of minutes. October the 12th, 2017, regular meeting. October the 26th, 2017, special meeting, Franklin Synergy proposals, and November the 2nd, 2017, special meeting, public comments. If there are no changes, corrections, or deletions, can we get a motion and a second, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklett?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels?
Aye. First readings. Letter from the City Recorder, Finance Director, first reading ordinance 17060. Mrs. Wright?
First of all, I want to mention while I have an opportunity about it's tax time in the city, We're still getting a lot of calls from people that did not get their bill. So please give my office a call at 615-893-5210. We'll be glad to help you, help guide you to how you can get it online. We can mail you a bill. We can tell you your receipt number and your dollar amount. Just hate for anybody to be late because they didn't get a bill, which of course won't help when it's time to charge that interest. I think I want to recognize Adam Tucker. This ordinance would not have happened without his diligent work on Chapter 4. He has researched state law. He has researched the city code. He has worked hard to get us up to where we're consistent with state law and with current practices. And he wrote this very good summary that I signed as my letter, and I want to give him full credit. This ordinance is to do several things, and I'm going to read some of the ones that I think are very substantive. A lot of it is renumbering sections because of different things we've done to maybe better organize the chapter. But one of the first substantive things is in Article 1, we've included a general statement declaring it lawful to engage in a wide range of commercial activities involving alcoholic beverages and beer, subject to the prohibitions, restrictions, and other provisions of state law and zoning, along with our code. This statement is consistent with the current version in Section 4.1, with the exception of one item that I'll mention next. The article also includes a new section that consolidates the definitions of the various terms used throughout Chapter 4. Because of the ordinance creating this new Article 1, all of the existing articles have been renumbered 2 through 7. These definitions are used heavily in my office. I have a staff member, Heather Lovern, that helps very daily working with these applications as they come in, and we do look back to these definitions, and we appreciate Mr. Tucker going through and helping us get these where we can use them regularly. The ordinance deletes the current version of Section 4-3, which prohibits the manufacture of alcoholic beverages, liquor, wine, and high alcohol content beer. It also includes a new section, 424, making it lawful to manufacture alcoholic beverages, including liquor, wine, and high alcohol content beer, that's hard for me to say, within the city, subject to the regulations, limitations, conditions, and restrictions set forth in Chapter 4 and the city zoning ordinance entitled 57, Chapters 2 and 3 of the Tennessee Code. Additionally, the revisions clarify the requirements for renewing certificates of compliance for retail liquor stores and retail food stores licensed to sell wine. It clarifies those individuals associated with the retail liquor store and retail food store who must provide current history background checks as a part of their certificate application. It's a new section that requires me to report to you annually the total number of licensed retail liquor stores operating within the city at the date of this report, and the total number of additional retail liquor stores, if any, that could be approved to operate within the city. In case you're curious, we can have 25, and right now we have 22, so we have 3 vacancies. Sections 411 and 431 concern location restrictions on retail liquor stores and establishments serving liquor by the drink. The revisions to these sections do not change the required separation distances between these establishments and schools and places of worship. However, they clarify that this distance is to be measured from the closest point on the property line of the school or place of worship and the center of the main entrance of an establishment that sells alcoholic beverage. This revision also grandfathers any provisions that might make, in this new section, that might make businesses currently in operation to maybe fail that measurement test. The ordinance deletes the current version of 411 employee permit because that's no longer part of state law. And we've added some privilege tax to limited service restaurants. Currently, we were not charging those. We do have several of those in town. And so that is now a new section. Well, they will get charged, and we've cleaned up the penalty and interest section to where it's now just interest if they're late paying. Let's see, the rest is kind of housekeeping. things we have to do for obtaining a catering permit, moving some of the definitions in beer. And the last one is where before it said that you could waive an application fee if there was no substantive change to the application. For example, if a business was named ABC Convenience Store and they decided they want to be EFG Convenience Store, no owners changed, no location changed, we were having to charge them and then bring it to you to ask could we give their money back. So this is to clarify that if there's no substantive change other than a name change, if somebody got married, they were having to get a new beer permit because the name was changed. Now they wouldn't have to do that. They could do that, but they wouldn't have to pay, and we wouldn't have to come to you and say, can we give this back? I think that's the highlights of it. The most financial impact is the addition of the privilege taxes, which we were not currently charging. And so we're recommending that you approve Ordinance 17060, and Mr. Tucker's here, and he and I would either love to entertain any questions if you have them.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Wright, and thank you, Mr. Tucker, for all your hard work. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. The distance requirements are pertaining to the retail sale of alcohol beverages. That distance requirements, is that correct?
It's both retail sale at a package store.
Okay.
That is section 4-11.
Right.
And 4-31 is for establishments that serve liquor by the drink, whether it's a restaurant or a bar.
What about the distance requirements for manufacturer? Shouldn't there?
That was going to be governed by the city zoning ordinance. There is not a specific in state law. There are specific provisions that law authorize municipalities and local governments to regulate the location of retail liquor stores and establishments that sell liquor by the drink. In that same Title 57 of the Tennessee Code, with respect to manufacturers, there is not that same authority, but the city has the authority to do that within its zoning ordinance. So we think that the appropriate place to place any restrictions on distance requirements with respect to manufacturers of alcohol would be in the zoning ordinance. And I think there's some discussions of that already.
Okay. Well, it's listed in this ordinance for retail. I just wondered if it doesn't need to be in there for manufacturing some type. Whatever we do with zoning, it probably needs to be reiterated, I would think, in this document or in this ordinance, or should it?
You could probably put it in either place. It has been in the alcohol ordinance because it's relevant to the issuing of a certificate of compliance or to the collection of privilege taxes or things like that. And that distance requirement needed to be known at the time that they were applying for a certificate of compliance. And they might not have had to go to the planning department before they went and sought a certificate of compliance from the finance department. Mm-hmm. So there's just a kind of a little bit of difference in the order in which things proceed through various city departments.
I was just concerned that we had not included it in there, and that it may, since we're changing the ordinance from you can't to you can.
Yes.
that there might be an additional definition. If we're going to do something, it might not.
Right. And I think it's important to add that this amendment here with respect to allowing manufacturing just allows it in a broad sense, mm-hmm. But it is not. There aren't any zones under the city's zoning ordinance that allow it. So that is going to be an additional revision that is going to need to come before the Planning Commission and City Council to revise the zoning ordinance to allow that type of activity.
Yeah, Mr. Shacklett, I believe that Planning Commission will be looking at a zoning ordinance amendment at the day meeting here, I believe, next week. Would anticipate that that goes to public hearing for Planning Commission, as all zoning ordinance amendments do, which would be sometime in January, and assuming a recommendation from the Planning Commission, that would be coming to council for your consideration after that. And there would be a distance, not the same kind of a distance chart, but there will be some distance provisions, separation provisions in that zoning amendment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think I've got a two-part question. Mr. Whitaker, could you come to the podium, please? Ms. Wright, you made the comment that there could be 25 liquor stores currently, and that would be based on our current population, right?
The projected population, not the 2010 one, but the one we get every year. We renew that every year.
Right. And if there were a census done, that might be updated maybe.
It might be.
Okay. Speaking of censuses,
I'll take this
Mr.
opportunity.
Whitaker, could you update us on how our census is going?
I appreciate the segue. Yes, in fact, we had our second mailing. We're hoping that our census numbers are up to 131 is what we're hoping. We're at about 47% return on our ballots. About 55,100 people have been counted. And so that's where we are. So it's very important for anyone to receive one of those cards to please fill it out and mail it back in. At the end of this process, naturally, we will have to send out the fire department door to door to try to get those people counted. We'd like to do it through the mail. It's a whole lot less bothersome to our fire chief and all of our firefighters. And everybody loves to see them, but we'd like to do it by mail if we can. But we're hoping that the number would be around 131,000, which would definitely raise that number.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Keep up the good work.
And thank you for that opportunity.
If there's no other questions and comments, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Consider for approval a request for certificate of compliance for new wine sale in retail stores for Fred Store Number 2315, located at 1664 Middle Tennessee Boulevard. Mrs. Wright?
Yes, this application is in order. Whether or not the state grants the application to them, the certificate of compliance is in order, and they've met the requirements that we're required to check for them.
Okay.
Glad to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments?
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. We're getting ready to move into the public hearings at this time. Pursuant to Resolution 17 RRPH 57, adopted by the City Council on November 9, 2017, conduct a public hearing to consider, one, adoption of a plan of services for an annexation of approximately 39.94 acres, and number two, zoning of approximately 39.94 acres along Manson Pike to Plan Unit Development PUD District Hardeman Grove PUD, which has been proposed to be annexed to the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Kathleen Lowe, Constantine Ivan Develis, and Crescent Homes, applicants 2017-514 and 2017-440. Notice of said public hearing was published in the November 27, 2017 issue of a local newspaper. Mrs. Wright, Mrs. Green.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Vice Mayor and council members. Our first public hearing this evening is for you to consider annexation petition and the adoption of a plan of services for property located along the north side of Manson Court. And you can see the property on the map that's on the screen before you. It's identified in two colors. The orange are the three parcels for which we've received a petition for annexation, and the area shaded blue is the right-of-way that the city is proposing to include in the annexation and has studied that right-of-way, and that is right-of-way of Manson Pike. And so you can see this property is located along Interstate 840 and north of Manson Pike. We did receive those petitions and prepare a plan of services for your review, and most services will be available upon the annexation of this property. There are a few items that will take some time. First of all, sewer doesn't meet the definition from the Water Resources Department as available, which means it's not on the property at this time. It will be coming down from the north, and that's a plan that they're actively working on. I just wanted to point that out since it is the plan of services, and that will be the responsibility of the developer to extend into the property. And another item that we wanted to work out was there are existing single-family homes on the site, and our assistant fire marshal was concerned with the ability to provide fire protection to those homes or even access them with our very large, heavy fire trucks. And so as a solution, what we propose is that this not come back before you for second reading until the property transfers. It goes from the ownership of Kathleen Lowe, Pamela Flynn, and Constantine Duvalis to the developer who's the applicant on the zoning change request. Once that property transfers, they'll remove the house, which removes our concern. And if they don't wish to move forward that direction, then the other option, option B, would be to widen the drive, to get the limbs of the trees that might be a hazard to the trucks out of the way, and to make sure that the trucks can access it according to the satisfaction of the fire marshal. And I think we're very comfortable proceeding that way if that's something that City Council is comfortable with. There was, in this annexation study, a 10-foot strip left along the north side of the property. It's so small that you can't see it on the map, and it's contiguous with the Shelton Springs property to the north. If you have any questions regarding this plan of services, I'd be glad to answer them for you, either before or after the public hearing. At this time, you'll need to conduct a public hearing regarding the matter of the annexation, not the matter of the zoning. After you close this public hearing, I'll come back up and do a brief presentation on the zoning change request, and then you'll have another public hearing to consider the zoning. But do you have any questions for the annexation at this time?
Thank you, Mrs. Green. We're going to conduct a public hearing on plan of services for annexation of approximately 39.94 acres located along Manson Pike. We're going to open the public hearing, and if you come up as an individual, we will ask that you come up, give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you have 5 minutes to speak. I've asked Mr. LaLance to assist me on the time, and we ask that you do respect the time. When you get to 30 seconds left, I'm going to hold my hand up like this, and when you get to the 3 minutes or 5 minutes, that. Okay? I'll open the public meeting. Is there anyone? Okay, we close the public hearing at this time. Consider for adoption Resolution 17 RPS 57 to adopt a plan of services for approximately 39.94 acres along Manson Pike. Kathleen Lowe and Constantine Van Duvalis, applicants 2017-514.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Consider for adoption. Okay. Resolution R17RA 57 to annex approximately 39.94 acres along Manson Pike and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the city of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Kathleen Lowe, Constantine Van Duvalis, applicants 2017-514. Any comments? If not, could we get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Mrs. Green?
Thank you. As promised, I'm back to discuss the zoning of the property. And you can see the map has changed, and it shows the existing city limits, which are shown in the yellow color. And the properties to the north are the Shelton Springs Plain Development, which was annexed and zoned PRD this year, and it's a rather large development, proposed single-family home. And then to the south, of course, is Manson Pike and Manson Court. And then just down Burton Knob Road is property that the city owns, and it's proposing to, as you might know, proposing to build a park. I guess you can build parks. But the application is for you to consider zoning this property to PUD, that's Planned Unit District, and that's because they're proposing a mix of uses, mostly residential with 2 proposed commercial lots near the entrance, and staff suggested that maybe a couple small neighborhood commercial uses would be appropriate in that location, so that's what they're showing. There is for their plan to completely work, there is a need for a mandatory referral action because they're requesting that we abandon some right-of-way, so we'll study that. And if the opportunity presents itself that we can give up some right-of-way, then it'll come, of course, before Planning Commission and City Council, and then we'll consider that. The plan does appear to rely on the right-of-way for the commercial property. However, the developer is prepared to not have the commercial portion of the plan development if the right-of-way if they can't acquire it. But as far as zoning, we wanted to go ahead and have them to consider that matter. And I'm going to go ahead and invite Mr. Rob Mulchin to the lectern. He has a presentation regarding the zoning, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them either before or after the public hearing.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council, Rob Mulchin, SEC. I'm here tonight on behalf of Crescent Builders to present to you Hardman Grove. Pull this up for y'all. As Margaret talked about, this project is located to the north side of Manson Pike. It's east of the homes that are fronting onto Blackman Road. It's west of Interstate I-840 and of some property, then of course south of Shelton Square, PRD to the north. In regards to existing zoning around the development itself, to the east and west is all residential medium density development within the county. To the south and east, you see they're located in the pink areas. Those are actually commercial properties within the county itself on that side. So that's commercial neighborhood development in Rutherford County. To the north, you see the PRD associated with Shelton Square. In regards to the 2035 land use plan, the land is actually in the land use plan calls for a business park. Our plan is deviating from the business park element and moving towards a residential commercial component. We feel that it is more conducive in regards to development that's occurring now and in the future out there in regards to residential with Shelton Square to the north, and then also the park property to the west of the development and other properties that are being developed right now in regards to the city and also county around there. We feel that there's better land use for residential and commercial elements versus a office park complex. A couple of images really quick to kind of go through, just kind of get a little feel for the property itself. This is looking on Manson Court. As you can see on the upper right-hand side, that is the grade ramp coming down from the flyover 840, so that's actually Manson Pike up there on the upper right. And to the left is the property itself. And this is looking into the property, and the majority of the property is agricultural land with some dense areas of trees on there. And this is a view from where Manson Court intersects with Manson Pike. So this is more or less our entrance to the development itself is at Manson Court. We're utilizing roughly the same location as the existing roadway for our entrance to the development. This is a view back towards the east as you're looking up the road as it's going over 840. And this is a view back towards to the west as you're heading towards Blackman Road. This is one of the commercial developments at the intersection of Blackman Road and Manson Pike. This is the Citgo station there, Blackman Station. This is a view of some of the other commercial elements at the intersection. This is looking north on Blackman Road. And here's a view looking south on Blackman Road from the intersection at Manson Pike. We're requesting tonight as a planned unit district, as Margarita spoke to. This is going to be a two different types of development. The majority of this would be a single-family detached residential development with roughly about another 2.4 acres of commercial property along Manson Pike. We felt that the opportunity was there for providing small residential commercial character to go along with this development that would also tie into the existing commercial character that we just spoke about in regards to the Citgo station and other developments at the intersection. These will all be public streets. There'll be sidewalks on both sides, creating a very walkable community, and all utilities will be underground with this development. 160 single-family units is what we're proposing with the development itself, all single-family detached. So that's roughly about 4.36 dwelling units to the acre. We're also incorporating over 5 acres of open space. I'll speak a little bit more about that down the road here in a little bit, but that's a pretty substantial amount of open space with development. Our minimum lot sizes are 5,500 square feet. We have 3 different lot sizes that are in this development. There's a 41-foot wide, a 46-foot wide, and a 51-foot wide lot mix. As you can see, the different color codings there. The lighter shaded green, the darker shaded green is the 41-foot wide lots. The lighter shaded green is the 46, and the more like the very bright whitish green is the 51-foot wide product. So these will all be part of an HOA. Talk a little bit about the setbacks in regards to the architecture. In this project here itself, you're looking at this diagram. The front setback on these will be 15 feet for the actual structure of the house, but the garage will be recessed 35 feet. Now that does allow for the development of this project in regards to the architectural component in regards to the homes to also have the homes recessed back to 35 feet, but we're allowing for the homes, if the architecture provides for it, to be moved up to 15 foot on that side. Sides will be 5 and the rear will be 5 on corner lots with 20 foot on the rear and the internal lots on that side. Talk a little bit about the homes themselves, 1 or 2 story homes. I'm going to show you minimum 1,600 square feet per home. Looking at minimum 2 bedrooms, 2-car front entry garages with decorative garage doors. Kind of building materials. These homes will be all cementatious type of products, whether it be stone, cementatious fiberboard, or brick. Vinyl will be provided in the trim and soffit areas in the homes, and each will have a covered front porch or stoop to go along with the architectural character. And these are a couple of the images of what we're proposing in regards to the architectural styles. We're also taking a very special look in regards to special focus lots. The overall look at the character, this was look at a couple different elements. One would be a corner or multiple frontage type lot. So it's a lot that's typically located on a corner. There we're proposing looking at upgrading and making certain that both elements of the facade that address the street frontage are handled in a more articulated way in regards to the building materials and the articulation of the architecture itself. We're also looking at homes that terminate views or vistas. So those would be homes that are looking at, when you come driving down the street, the actual terminus of that view, you get a very good presentation of architecture at the end of that drive. And also homes fronting on parks and open spaces. Those are usually somewhat premium lots. So you look at it from that standpoint in regards to the open space we have in this development as well. A couple perspectives in regards to what we anticipate the streetscape to look like. And this is a view looking down the street at the homes. And again, another view of the homes and the streetscape. Amenities, we have one main focal amenity. This is the main green space in the center of the development. As you can see here, the conceptual layout for the park itself is mainly a very large grassy area for outdoor recreation, play, sports, that kind of stuff, but also providing a tot lot or a playground structure that's tied into this, along with some seating areas that are associated with this. And these are some of the potential playground elements that will be incorporated into that play area. We're also looking at decorative mailboxes, and also going to be using decorative street lighting to go along with this. In regards to the remainder of the open space, around the perimeter of this whole property, we're leaving about a 10-foot swath of open space. That is more or less going to be an open space that's maintained in perpetuity by the HOA, kind of creating a little bit of a buffer between this development and any existing developments around it, but also to kind of help with in regards to trying to preserve as much of the existing tree rows that encompass the development itself. Getting onto the commercial lots, 2 commercial lots you can see here in this diagram are located up here along Manson Pike at the entrance. We're looking at we have no immediate end users at this point in time, but we're looking forward to bringing to the community a definite little neighborhood kind of feel commercially on that side. And maximum building heights will be set to 35 feet. You can see here this is looking at 30-foot front setbacks. That'll be a setback of 30 foot to Manson Pike, but also the main entrance to the neighborhood. Also then 10-foot side setbacks and 20 foot on the rears. We're looking at utilizing, again, mostly cementatious type materials in regards to the elevations, brick, stone, fiber cement board, stucco, vinyl, and trim. Vinyl will be only utilized in trim and soffit areas on that side as well. We're also going to be incorporating between the proposed commercial development and the residential portion of this development is a type C landscape buffer, which will also incorporate a 6-foot tall fence that will help with the separation. We anticipate as these 2 lots develop out and the design for these move forward, the architecture will be placed up along Manson Pike, and that anything vehicular-wise will be along the backside. So we anticipate some headlights that could potentially protrude into those first couple lots along the residential and commercial edge there. So utilizing that 6-foot tall fence will help minimize any of those vehicular light impacts at night in regards to that, and also from sound and visual buffer between those 2 different types of uses. Access, like I said, the main access point will be off of Manson Pike. As you can see here is a little character sketch of what we anticipate. We're looking at a divided median at the entrance sign, and also some four-rail horse fence elements, along with some stone columns to kind of really help give you a great feel walking in, driving into this neighborhood. Our secondary point of access will be eventually to tie into a stub road that's proposed with Shelton Square to the north. That'll be our second means of ingress, egress in the project, and that'll be tie into the development. And that'll also be our point of location where our sewer service will be coming over from Shelton Square on the north side. Our last point of ingress, egress will be a sub. We're actually sticking out towards the adjacent property that's still part of the county zoning. Then we're giving that land the opportunity that if and when it does develop, and for the existing landowner over there that's currently living on that property, to have that as an access point as that land develops out. We're providing an access way in regards to the existing landowner right now. As you can see, south of that, we're incorporating a new driveway, more or less, that comes back into our development that allows access onto that property in regards to the resident that's still living there today. With that, I appreciate your time and consideration of this rezoning request. I'm available for any questions now or after public hearing. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comment?
What is, I'm sorry, just south, I guess, of the three there on it, what is that little blue strip that you've got going into the property? I don't understand what that is.
Let's see here. What page are you looking at?
Could you, that last map that we had up, yeah, it's right there in the southeast, yeah, right where you're.
That's the driveway I just spoke about in regards to providing new access to the existing homeowner over there. They currently have access to Manson Court, the road that leads over to Manson Pike. And with this development, as Margaret Ann talked about, we'll be more or less asking for a mandatory referral for condemnation of Manson Court. And what we're doing is providing a new driveway location back to that existing property that's still zoned in the county, so they still have access to a roadway, public roadway, to get back to Manson Pike and out in the community.
And your commercial property doesn't have access to Manson Pike?
Correct. It has to come back out in regards to that diagram that I showed. We'll have two entrances, an entrance to each parcel off the main entrance that goes into the residential portion of the development.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, conduct a public hearing to consider zoning of approximately 39.94 acres along Manson Pike as planned unit development. PUD District Hardeman Grove PUD simultaneous with annexation Crescent Homes applicant 2017-440. We're going to now open the public hearing. The same rules apply. Anyone would like to come forward? We'll close the public hearing. Consider for passage on first reading ordinance 17-OZ57 to zone an area located along Manson Pike as planned unit development, PUD District Hardeman Grove PUD, simultaneous with annexation 2017-440.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Pursuant to Resolution 17 RPH 58, adopted by the City Council on November the 9th, 2017, conduct a public hearing to consider, 1, adoption of a plan of service for an annexation of approximately 36.04 acres, and 2, zoning of approximately 34.25 acres as planned residential development, PRD District, Wynwoods PRD, which have been proposed to be annexed to the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, zoning of approximately 1.79 acres as single-family attached suburban townhouse RSA Type 2 district, which have been proposed to be annexed to the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, rezoning of approximately 1.3 acres from single-family residential 10 RS10 district to planned residential development RDP PRD district, and rezone of approximately 7.0 acres from single-family residential 10 RS10 district to single-family attached suburban townhouse RSA Type 2 district along Florence Road, which have been proposed to be annexed to the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Fortress Builders Incorporated. Applicant 2017-515 and 2017-438. Notice of said public hearing was published in the November 27, 2017 issue of a local newspaper. Mr. Anthony.
Good evening, and thank you. I'm Donald Anthony with the Planning Department. The applicant, Fortress Builders, has requested annexation of a 36-acre tract located along the west side of Florence Road. This is about 1/2 mile south of the intersection of Florence Road and Old Nashville Highway. The annexation would be for an entire parcel of just under 1 acre and a 35-acre portion of a larger 44-acre parcel. The remainder of that larger parcel was annexed by the city back in 2006. The property is contiguous with the city on the north, south, and east. A 10-foot strip along the eastern and northern boundaries of the annexation area would remain unannexed to prevent a residential property on the southeast side of the annexation area from being completely enclosed by the city. Based on guidance we've received from the legal department, the 10-foot strips may not be necessary in the future, so this may be among the last of those that you get to see. That's very unfortunate for everybody, I suppose. The plan of services provided in your packet indicates that all of the necessary services can be provided to this property. A companion rezoning request will be item D, and we will have additional comments at that time. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for this item on November 1st and voted to send this forward to you with a favorable recommendation. Staff can answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments? Conduct a public hearing on plan of services for an annexation of approximately 36.04 acres located along Florence Road. We'll now open the public hearing. The same rules apply. Would anyone like to come forward? Comments?
I'm not going to get to time anybody or what?
I'd like to close the public hearing at this time. Consider for adoption Resolution 17 RPS 58 to adopt a plan of services for approximately 36.04 acres along Florence Road, Fortress Builders Incorporated, applicant 2017-515.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Consider for adoption Resolution 17 RA 58 to annex approximately 36.04 acres along Florence Road and to incorporate the same into the corporate boundaries of the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Fortress Builders Incorporated, applicant 2017-515.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Conduct a public hearing to consider zoning of approximately 34.25 acres as planned residential development PRD District Wynwoods PRD simultaneous with annexation to zone approximately 1.79 acres as a single-family attached suburban townhouse RSA Type 2 District simultaneous with annexation to rezone approximately 1.3 acres from single-family residential 10 RS10 district to planned residential development PRD district and to rezone approximately 7.0 acres from single-family residential 10 RS10 district to single-family attached suburban townhouse RSA Type 2 district along Florence Road, Fortress Builders Incorporated, applicant 2017-438.
Fortress Builders has requested rezoning for a little over 44 acres located along the west side of Florence Road. If you look at the map in front of you, hopefully the colors are showing up well. You'll see portions colored purple and blue. These areas total approximately 35.6 acres. An applicant has requested rezoning for these areas to PRD. The proposed PRD would be called Wynwoods and would consist of a 107-unit single-family residential subdivision. If you go back to the map, you'll see portions colored pink and orange. Those areas total approximately 8.8 acres, and the applicant has requested rezoning for those areas to RSA Type 2. This is our new suburban townhouse zoning district that was recently added to the zoning ordinance. And if you go back to the map one more time, you'll see a 0.85 acre parcel that is colored yellow. This parcel was part of the annexation request, but we did not receive a rezoning request, so that one would default to RS15 upon annexation. Murfreesboro 2035 indicates that auto-urban residential with a density of 3.54 to 8.64 units per acre is appropriate for this area. Based on our calculations, taking both the proposed single-family development and the townhouse zoning into account, the absolute maximum density that could be achieved with this rezoning is 6.68 units per acre, which falls within the 2035 plan's prescribed density range. Adjacent zoning includes PRD on the north, RS10 on the east, and a mix of RS10 and PUD on the south. Property to the west is located in the unincorporated county and is zoned medium density residential. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on November 1st for this item and voted to send this forward to you with a favorable recommendation. Rob Mulchen from SEC is here representing the applicant and can talk more about the rezoning request and specifically the PRD portion of this request. Staff can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony.
Thank you.
Mr. Tyndall? Will it all be one public hearing for all those different things, or will we talk about those separately, or will it be one motion?
Well, yeah, there are 3 different zoning types, but I think it's one zoning request, so I think we can do one motion and one consideration of all the 3 types.
All right.
Good evening again, Vice Mayor, members of council, Rob Mulchen, SEC. Here tonight on behalf of Fortress Builders, present to you Wynwood's PRD. You can see here an aerial shot of the existing property itself. As you can see, mostly agricultural lands with a little pocket in the northwest corner that is mostly heavily covered in evergreen or cedar forest on that side. Again, for Fortress, Florence Road is off to the eastern side of the development itself, and it'll be our main point of thoroughfare traffic for vehicular side. Mr. Anthony talked about, we do have a mixture of residential components to this. To the west is still incorporated unincorporated RM zoned in the county. To the north is the PRD that is part of Seward Crossing. To the south, you have RS10 and PUD. PUD is actually part of the old Home Place PUD that was brought back in the mid-2000s. And you've got another portion of RS10 residential neighborhoods across the street. Regards to the land use plan calls for auto-urban general residential. Our plan is staying consistent with that request in regards to what that is, and that's usually proposed with densities in the around what we're asking for around the 6 range overall on that side, and staying with the different types of land and types of home styles that's incorporated with that land use. Just a couple images really quick. This is a view into the site from Florence. And you can see very much agricultural. This is a view down Florence. Florence Road is currently built out to a 3-lane cross section. This is looking back towards the north, towards Old Nashville Highway. There's a couple of views of some of the homes around. This is in Seward Crossing to the north. This is the PRD to the north side. And then this is a couple of the homes across the street on the other side of Florence from the development. And these are some of the characters of the neighborhoods that are around the development. Again, we're asking for PRD zoning. We'll have 2 different styles of homes in this. The main component of this is 107 single-family detached lots. The other portion will be the RSA Type 2 suburban townhome mixture. That is you can see on the diagram there, the orange area to the south on that side. Currently, with the 107 dwelling units on this property, looking at roughly almost 3 units to the acre for single-family on that side. Looking at an 8,000 square foot minimum lot, that's technically, we're looking at roughly a 70-foot wide by 120-foot deep lot. We're also providing over 6 acres of green space or open space on this project. All streets will be public with sidewalks on both sides of the street, providing a very walkable neighborhood. We have two different types of setbacks incorporated with this development as well. We have the product line that they're looking at for houses is two different types. One is a strictly single-family front entry loaded type home. So you have on the left-hand side there the diagram looking at the 35-foot front setback that'll afford for the 4 cars in the driveway outside the garage. We're not asking for the garages to be set back or restricted to vehicular. You can actually use the garage for whatever it means on that side. As we in some developments we have that caveat put in there. Secondary frontage, which would be a side street, looking at a 25-foot front setback on those. And then the second portion of this is the side entry garage homes that they're looking at proposing for this. We're moving the actual frontage of the homes up to 25-foot setback versus a 35-foot because this will be a side entry product. So more or less you'll have a parking court or an area for cars to maneuver in and out of the driveways, in and out of the garage on that side. So you'll have more than ample room to accommodate all 4 cars associated with the homes. Again, these will be 2-story homes, minimum 1,500 square feet of living space, 2 bedrooms or more. The homes will definitely have the 2-car front entry or side entry garages that I spoke about. We'll also be looking at using an enhanced standard garage door to kind of help elevate the architectural character of the homes. And here's a couple of the images of the existing homes they built in other developments in regards to that side entry character and feel of the homes. Again, we'll be looking at all the elevations of this. Will be a 50% masonry type product, brick, stone, or hardy board, with the remainder being 50% vinyl. And then vinyl will also be used in the trim, soffit, and dormer areas of the homes. Amenities, we have one main centrally located amenity. The amenity itself will incorporate a cabana, a pool, and a tot lot. You can see some of the examples of what we're looking at architecturally in regards to the style and character of the pool house, the pool itself, and also the tot lot or in playground area around the facility itself. Access, our main access point initially will be off of Florence Road, as you can see there in the diagram. We'll also be providing a secondary access point as part of the major thoroughfare plan. There is a 5-lane roadway proposed to lead from Florence back over to Interstate 24 to a proposed interchange. So when that develops out, we'll have that second egress point that'll tie into that future arterial road that's part of the major thoroughfare plan. We'll also be incorporating entrance signage at both of those locations. And part of phase 1 will be our second egress point, which will tie into the existing roadway structure over in Seward Crossing to the north on that side. We'll also be providing a stub road out of phase 2 to the west to the unincorporated lands for connectivity to any future development that may develop on that land. Appreciate your time and consideration in this rezoning request. I'm available for questions now or after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Hey, Mr. Mulchin, I've got some questions. I'm sorry. In the right of way, or sorry, the 5-lane road that you show coming in there, looks like I guess to the south of that property.
Correct.
Is the right of way there included in your property?
No, it's outside the bounds of this. So the southern boundary of this development is actually the northern boundary of the right-of-way, the proposed right-of-way that we're working with staff in regards to how this roadway aligns on that side. So the opportunity for what they see, this connectivity point from Florence Road back to the interstate and that proposed interchange over there, their previous major thoroughfare plan had the road to actually kind of towards the northern end of our property. But as they reevaluated that design, they felt that it was better in regards to connectivity from Florence Road back towards Old Nashville Highway and points to the east would be better suited because there's available lands across Florence for that roadway to continue across on that side. So the roadway has been brought down and is actually our southern boundary is the northern boundary of the right-of-way.
Mr. Huddleston, this may be one of those things where, I don't necessarily want to muddy the waters too much here, but, it seems like, as we go through these, we're sometimes limited to being able to deal with these parcels one parcel at a time. I mean, would it be smart for us to try to go ahead and try to incorporate the right-of-way? I mean, if in fact we're saying that this development is okay because there's going to be a 5-lane road that we're going to be able to come out to and get out to the interstate and that sort of thing, can we sew that up now in this process rather than wait until and having to go up and buy right away from somebody else?
So, Mr. LaLance, the Major Transportation Plan's doing its work right here. As we brought that before you and the Planning Commission, we explained during the process that it is a planning tool. Here's the application. We have a development plan that is impacted by the Major Transportation Plan. We have enough information at this point that recommends that the best alignment of that roadway would be this southern boundary. And so there'd be a participation by the developer of this product. In the cost of that, the right-of-way would be acquired on the property to the south. And so your question is, how does all that work?
Well, I guess what I'm kind of asking is, I mean, is it a time for us to try to work with the current applicants to see if we move that up a little bit to the north and not necessarily all of it, not the whole 5 lanes, but, is there a need for us to have some access to make sure we're doing what we need to do to make sure we have access to get to Florence Road?
And so maybe there are a couple of process questions and a couple of practical questions in this. The practical question is the best alignment, the best place for us to hit Florence Road was identified in Mr. Molchan's exhibit because of the balance of the Major Transportation Plan needing to have an intersection on Florence Road and then continue across Florence Road. So that point became somewhat fixed, and then as we worked our way back toward the interchange, it appeared to us the best alignment was to follow that southern property line. What I will say is that this is a busy area right now, and so we'll be bringing before you in the very near future the concept plan that we have developed with SEC's help on the alignment of that roadway and the projects that will be impacted by it. And so we've done, in this case, we've done a lot more roadway design and concept development than we might have normally for this property.
What degree of certainty would you say there is that there will be a 5-lane road exactly where it was shown on that diagram right there?
Well, I'm not a betting man.
Well,
and
look,
there's some, and there's
on the diagram and part of the deal as far as whether or not this makes sense. We need to know that's real.
Yes, and so we have shared that with the applicant and the property owner to the south, and we have some work to do, I would say, on that to confirm that this is the best alignment. And so your dilemma could be that the roadway shifts significantly and we lose a potential access to a 5-lane roadway. And my thoughts are that if it shifts slightly because of the roadway geometric design parameters. In other words, we can only do so much with that road. We need to hit the point at Florence Road that we're hitting today, that's proposed here. We need to be at that location, give or take a few feet. And so from a 5-lane roadway and a design speed standpoint, it doesn't make it's not practical for us to shift that road significantly to the south, but there might be some slight adjustments to realign it to the south. And then that also creates another issue for the developers, which is a grudge strip or an unusable strip between these two properties. And so, as we don't do design so much with the major thoroughfare plan as we lay it out, but we do look at the practical realities of parcel lines and property lines and give some thought to that at the time. And so to answer your question, how confident am I? I think that that the major transportation plan shows this as the best location for this roadway. And I think the applicant and the other property owners we have talked to so far haven't given us a reason to maybe question that.
How, without having connectivity to that 5-lane road, how practical is a townhome site development if you don't have access? I don't see how you could. Well, how you can develop a townhome site if you don't have access to a 5-lane.
And so the major transportation plan is expecting this 5-lane roadway through there. And so as we see development plans in the future, or as we see an action by the city, certainly the city could take action on this 5-lane roadway as an independent project. So the major transportation plan tells us there's a 5-lane roadway in the future on this property. The question is the timing, perhaps. And then the second question would be who initiates it. And so at this point, it appears to me that it's going to be initiated by a public-private partnership. The city has an interest in this, and we believe the property owners have an interest in it. But from a practical standpoint, Mr. Shacklett, the planning process is going to demand it. And so whether he has access immediately adjacent to that 5-lane or he has a stub street, as is shown here, to the property to the south, there can be connectivity created in a development plan that would establish that connection.
Yeah, I'm concerned. You know, I'll just tell you, I'm was concerned already with the fact that it allows for 21 units per acre, which is more than what our highest multifamily zoning allowed for up until very recently. And man, there's still, 29 projects that were on our last major thoroughfare plan that are not, we haven't even started yet. So, I mean, the fact that road may not come in for 25 or 30 years by then when there's, 600 or 1 million people in Rutherford County or something, frightens me a bit to not have a little more certainty as far as where we're plugging in density. So, look, we're getting past that. But the other question I had was about underground utilities. Is it underground utilities? All right. Thanks, Sam.
I was going to offer just one more thought on the overall issue here, and it just escaped me, so I might come back to you after the public hearing. How's that sound? I'll collect those thoughts and bring them back to you.
Come on, that's fine.
All right.
That happens to me all the time.
But if we could back up to your question on underground utility, because the record wouldn't show, but the indication was from the applicant's engineers that there would be underground utility.
Yeah, thank you.
An affirmative answer.
Okay, we will conduct the public hearing. The same rules apply. Anyone would like to come up, comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Consider for passage on first reading ordinance 17OZ58.
So in that short time, I had time to collect my thoughts.
What just happened?
In a conversation we had internally. And when we received this application and as we reviewed it as staff, and we considered the impact of major transportation plan, the reality is an interchange proposed in this neighborhood is a game changer for the property uses and the land use paradigm. And so while we're looking at that, and we should look at it on its impacts today and the realities of the location today, we also need to maybe look forward and think about what this property needs to be in the future with a 5-lane roadway and an interstate interchange within a couple thousand feet of it.
Yeah, hey, I'm all for that. My preference would be to vote for just the part of it. I mean, if everybody wants to vote on it, we'll vote on it. But I'd hate to have to vote no on the whole project just because of whatever it is, 25% of the land in the project. But I don't know if anybody else has a desire to fool with it. That's fine with me. If we want to move on, y'all make a motion.
Yes, and I think staff's ready to maybe answer and maybe discuss the issue of the 21.5 units per acre density that was reported in our staff report.
Yeah, to me, I just don't feel like we're quite ready. It doesn't seem to me like I'd have the comfort level I would need the assurance that we'll need to have the ingress, egress, all that kind of stuff for that kind of density right there in that spot right now. So, for me, I'd rather say go ahead with the single family part and come back to us later with the other, if that's even a possibility. But if nobody else feels that way, then we'll move on with it. I'm fine with that, whatever.
I'll be ready to help with anything. Staff will be ready to help with any other discussion you need from us.
All right, thanks.
If I can, I think one thing that Sam was saying there was the practicality of where that road will be located, how certain that we are in that location, and that's driven by what's already developed on the east side of Florence Road. Where we show that intersection with Florence Road, that's the only place through that corridor that does not have development on the other side. And so for us to be able to, or for the city to be able to see the Cherry Lane 5-lane connection from where it's envisioned now, back out to Siegel Park, all the way down to here to this interchange and then to connect back over to Blackman Road. This is the only location along that stretch, and that's why that this is shown where it is. The 5-lane road will be at this location, or it will be, or it won't be. So we feel very confident in that location for that fact. And the reason we can't put it on this property is because at the southeast corner of this property where we couldn't annex, it's a different property owner. Otherwise, it probably would have been, it may have been half and half. So that is, it cannot shift up and down, or the 5-lane won't come to fruition like the major thoroughfare plan intends. We feel very confident in that location.
Yeah, part of my concern is just kind of the timing of it too, and if and when it ever does even happen. You know, I mean, that's, like I said, man, we're still not even starting stuff that we said we were going to have 25 years ago, so makes it kind of tough. That's all.
Is this the first time that townhouse districting zoning has come up before us?
This RSA, yeah.
A. So how many units are we talking about potentially at that?
I know that the numbers in the staff report are a little high, and if you're a developer, 198 units on that property is your best case scenario, and if you're not so fond of density, that's your worst case scenario. So we wanted to just provide a number. That 198 is based on applying 21.5 and not taking anything else into account. But with the RSA Type 2, I want to point out that the applicant would have to provide 10% of the land for open space. They would have to provide a 35-foot front setback, which is going to consume a lot of the land. There would be, parking requirements, utility easements, stormwater facilities, right-of-way dedication. All of those things would end up reducing that number to something. But we have to provide a number, and so we want to give you the absolute largest number that it could possibly be. But I think traditionally, if you look at deducting about 25% of the land area for all of these things that I just mentioned, that would obviously drop way down the number of units that you could actually get on that piece of property.
How high can a RSA Type 2 go?
It's a two-story, I believe, two-story structure.
Even at that, the yield's 130 or 140 units, even just round numbers. That's pretty, okay.
If I can again, that number is an allowable density. What we normally see in those, the townhouses range from, in generally, like that 5 to 9 units to the acre is generally what we see on townhouses.
Any other comments, questions? Consider for passage on first reading ordinance 17OZ58 to zone approximately 34.25 acres as planned residential development, PRD District Woodlands, Wynwoods, PRD simultaneous townhouse, RSA Type 2 District simultaneous with annexation to rezone approximately 1.3 acres from single-family residential 10 RS 10 District to planned residential development, PRD District to rezone approximately 7.0 acres from single-family residential 10 RS 10 District to single-family attached suburban townhouse RSA Type 2 District along Florence Road 2017-438.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I mean, look, I don't want to, you know, I mean, I'm a no on it just as a whole. But I don't want to, if there's another no, we need to do that now, because I don't want to say, I don't want the whole thing to have to start over if other people feel like I do. And I guess, I mean, does anybody else feel it?
The single family is fine with me. I'm a little uncomfortable with the new zoning and what we're doing. So.
As opposed to going all the way back through. Well, we'll wait on that, but I if it gets second and then we get 2 no's, it has to go all the way back through.
No, it'd be 3-2.
3-2.
Would it? Oh, yeah, I got my math wrong, don't I? Shane, not up here.
I'll second it, and we'll see where it goes.
All right, good. Perfect.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
No.
Mr. Shacklet?
No.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye.
There you go. It's easier than I thought.
Leadership Rutherford, if you would like to leave, you can. You've stayed your allotted time. You're welcome to stay. But you're welcome to stay anytime you'd like to leave, you can. Pursuant to Resolution 17 RPH 59 adopted by the City Council on November 9, 2017, conducted public hearing to consider A, adoption of a plan of service for an annexation of approximately 18.2 acres, and 2, zoning of approximately 18.2 acres along Manson Pike and Florence Road to Planned Residential Development PRD District, Blackman Village PRD, which have been proposed to be annexed to the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. John Floyd and Old South Properties applicants 2017-512 and 2017-435. Notice of said public hearing was published in the November 27, 2017 issue of a local newspaper. Mr. Anthony.
Thank you, ma'am. Staff has received a petition for annexation from John Floyd for 3 parcels located along the north side of Manson Pike and the west side of Florence Road. This property has a total area of approximately 18.2 acres. The property is contiguous with the existing city boundary on the southwest and is located within the city's urban growth boundary. The plan of services provided in your packet indicates that all necessary services can be provided. As noted in the plan of services, the Murfreesboro Water Resources Department will require the installation of a sewer pump station and force main to serve the property due to the Oakton station already being at capacity. There is a companion rezoning request for this property, and we'll talk more about that when we get to item D. Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on November 1st and voted to send this forward to you with a favorable recommendation. Staff can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Conduct a public hearing on plan of services for an annexation of approximately 18.2 acres located along Manson Pike and Florence Road. We'll now open the public hearing. Same rules apply. No comments. We'll close the public hearing. Consider for adoption Resolution 17 RPS 59 to adopt a plan of services for approximately 18.2 acres along Manson Pike and Florence Road. John Floyd, applicant, 2017-512.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Consider for adoption Resolution 17 RA 59 to annex approximately 18.2 acres along Manson Pike and Florence Road and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. John Floyd, applicant, 2017-512.
Need a motion?
Yes.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Mr. Anthony.
Thank you. This rezoning request is for the same property as the previous annexation item. Old South Properties has requested that the city rezone 18.17 acres located along Manson Pike and Florence Road to PRD, or Planned Residential District, simultaneous with annexation. The proposed PRD would include 79 detached residential units for a density of 4.35 dwelling units per acre. This development would be recorded as a horizontal property regime on one lot of record, so all of the exterior spaces would be shared and a homeowners association would be responsible for upkeep and maintenance. The applicant has committed to using cementitious siding as the primary exterior material, and each house would have a minimum floor area of 1,300 square feet. Murfreesboro 2035 shows a 1.6-mile business park corridor along the north side of Manson Pike. This is the same corridor that Ms. Green spoke of with the Hardeman Grove request earlier. The subject property is situated at the halfway mark of that corridor. At the public hearing before the Planning Commission, staff noted that long-range plans for this corridor are in a state of transition, particularly since the acquisition of the West Park property. And the Planning Commission did not see the business park designation as an impediment to development such as the one being proposed. Adjacent zoning includes RS-12 and RS-15 on the southwest and county RM, or medium density residential, on all other sides. Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on November 1st and voted to send this forward to you with a favorable recommendation. Rob Mulchen from SEC is here and can discuss this request in more detail, and staff can answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council, Rob Mulchen, SEC. Here tonight on behalf of Mr. John Floyd and Old South Properties to present to you Blackman Village. Quick little overview. This is the existing property. As you can see, mainly agricultural lands. As you can see, the property is lined by a bunch of really good existing evergreen tree rows along the property lines, but the majority of the property is open and is grassland or hayfields. Rezoning, as you can see, this property and all the properties to the north, east, and west are all still part of the existing RM, or medium residential density zoning in the county. And to the south, you can see that most of the properties to the south have already been annexed and rezoned in regards to the city proper itself. As you can see, the majority of the, to the southeast, the majority of the properties is down there is a commercial fringe or commercial local in regards to the intersection of Florence Road and Manson Pike. You have some single-family residential RS districts to the south, and then to the southwest you have the PRD associated with the recently approved a year or so ago Mennington Park townhomes over there. As Donald talked about, the existing land use plan from 2035 calls for the business park, as he talked about in regards to this and the previous project tonight in regards to Hardeman Grove. The business park aspect of this land use portion of the plan is being kind of amended based on the fact that the West Park park is actually online, and that we're looking at changes in transition to that plan, and that we also feel that the uses that are being proposed with the project tonight are more in tune with the existing residential character that surrounds it, and also the institutional character with the church next door on the west. A couple of quick views in the property. This is, like I said, along the property lines, there's some pretty substantial existing tree rows in regards to evergreens, cedars, pines, such along like that. Our anticipation is to preserve as much of that as possible in regards to being good neighbors with the existing properties and neighborhoods around us, to kind of help a visual buffer between the two on that side. Here's a picture looking back from the church and the property. Like I said, the majority of the property is mostly agricultural or hay fields. This is the existing home on the property. This portion, as you can see in the development, we're actually keeping this home as part of the overall development. This home will be rezoned with the property, but the HOA and the document in the portion of this ordinance that goes along with it will not govern this property, because it will be remaining with the existing homeowner and landowner. A couple of the actual character feels of the homes in the subdivision to the north. This is a look at Florence Road, which we're looking back towards intersection of Manson Pike, north on Florence. Again, this is roughly where our exit will be, or entrance to the neighborhood along Manson Pike, looking back towards 840. We're again requesting PR rezoning. This is for 78 single-family detached units, so we're looking at roughly about 4.35 units to the acre. This will be sold via a horizontal property regime. We'll also be providing a very substantial amount of open space with this project, as you can see in the concept plan itself, the amount of green in regards to the open spaces. And we're also using this open space to kind of help more or less kind of create our separation between the homes in this development and the existing homes to the north and the other properties, especially the Blackman Community Center, which is located in the center portion of that image there. We're trying to be good neighbors with our community groups as well. Well, these will all be public streets, sidewalks on both sides of the streets for a very walkable neighborhood. We'll be incorporating the 35-foot front setback that allow for 4 cars to be parked in the driveway in front of the garage, 10 foot between the buildings and 20-foot separation on the rears to the existing property lines and other homes within the development itself. 1 or 2 story homes, looking at a minimum 1,300 square feet for the homes themselves. Looking at 2 bedrooms or more. All cars will have a 2-car front entry garage. And these are, like I said, be sold under the horizontal property regime. And these garage doors will be standard garages with windows for a little extra decoration. Building materials. The primary element to this will be cementatious fiber siding on that side. Brick and stone base along the front side, so adding a little extra architectural character along the front side of the architecture. And the sides and rear will all be cement fiber board. Vinyl will only be in the trim soffit and dormer areas of the homes themselves. Amenities, you can say, I've talked about, we've got over 10 acres of green space associated with this. The main element to this overall property is going to be the walking trail system we're proposing with this that will lead from Manson Pike back through the heart of the neighborhood and back around the existing sidewalk structure and the proposed sidewalk structure in the development, which will lead through and up to our proposed dog park and tot lot area that's in the open space on the north side of the development. So kind of creating a good little holistic enclosed area back there for recreational, but also those spaces that aren't being utilized with the dog park and the playground will be great spaces for outdoor play, especially when you look to the western side of the property to the south side of our proposed detention area. Very large open space under the TVA easement. There is no TVA line there, but there is an easement there. Very good space for outdoor recreation in regards to football or soccer games and such like that. And also a good piece that ties into the church next door. Access, we have really 2 access points. One access point will be the entrance off of Manson Pike, and the secondary access point will be off of Florence Road. We'll also be providing a extra access point to the property to the north. This is the remaining parcel of land aside from the residential portion of this development, the neighborhood that's existing, and also the church. So there's a landlocked parcel up there. We're providing a stub street for that landowner to tie into in the future if he ever wishes to be annexed into the city. We'll also be incorporating a masonry type entrance sign as to signify you're welcoming to Blackman Village. Appreciate your time and consideration with this rezoning, and I'm here for any questions now or up to public hearing.
Well, I got an answer from Google, but I want to ask you, could you explain horizontal property regime model a little bit?
So more or less in regards to the horizontal property regime, the standpoint of what we're doing here is you're creating pads for the homes to sit on. So in regards to the development, the person who's looking to buy or move into this development, when they come to buy the home, they're actually buying the home itself, but it's only really the insides of the home itself. The exterior facades of the homes, the driveways, the lawn areas and all that stuff that are around the homes and around the rest of the community are all part of the HOA itself. So the HOA owns and maintains those portions of the home and the exterior of the home and the areas around the home and the rest of the development itself. So when someone buys into a horizontal property regime, they're actually buying more or less what's inside the 4 walls of the home. That's really what you're owning and maintaining, whereas the outside of the home is maintained by the HOA. So it's really a low maintenance type of development from the standpoint of a homeowner. So instead of having to worry about mowing your grass or maintaining how your siding looks or your roofs and stuff like that leak, the HOA will maintain that for you as part of that development. So it's really a low maintenance type of development in regards to a traditional buying into a house. You have to maintain that yard, get the mower out every week and mow once or twice in the summer heat and all that stuff, and worry about whether or not your siding looks good and stuff like that. So that's more or less what it comes down to.
Thank you. Is there a development that you could, in Murfreesboro, that you could refer that It's done.
Yeah, we did Tuscany is another one of these style homes that's being built up on Thompson Lane up there. Again, that's a horizontal property regime there. Again, that was more geared towards the age-targeted variety, more like 55 and above on that side. So that, from that caveat, it's really a good thing for those individuals looking to buy into that age-targeted mixture. They went along the same premise using horizontal property regime because really those individuals who are getting close to retirement or already in retirement age that buy into that type of development are buying in the same type of development we're proposing here tonight in regards to low maintenance in regards to your home ownership.
It's very much like a detached, what we would consider a traditional condo, except it's detached.
Correct. And that's like most of your townhomes are pretty much geared that same way as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, conduct a public hearing to consider zoning of approximately 18.2 acres along Manson Pike and Florence Road as planned residential development. PRD District, Blackman Village, PRD simultaneous with annexation, Old South Properties, applicant 2017-435. Going to open the public hearing once more. Same rules apply. No comments. We close the public hearing. Consider for passage on first reading ordinance 17OZ59 to zone an area along Manson Pike and Florence Road as planned residential development. PRD District, Blackman Village, simultaneous with annexation 2017-435.
Move for passage.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Consider recommendations of the Planning Commission. Mandatory referral in South Point Property Campus subdivision to consider abandonment of a road usage easement located west of South Church Street. Matt Taylor, applicant. Mr. Brumley.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Scales Harris, and good evening to all the council members. Our next item is a mandatory referral for the abandonment of a road usage easement. And normally the mandatory referrals regarding easements we include on the consent agenda, and the mandatory referrals regarding right-of-way abandonments we include on the regular agenda. This is kind of a hybrid of both, so we just went ahead and decided to treat it like a right-of-way based upon the trustee counsel of Mr. Ives. This was actually recorded in 1972 as a quote-unquote road usage easement. And if y'all know where the Exxon is, the Exxon on the run on South Church Street next to where the Waffle House used to be, that recently relocated. So the area in orange is actually the location of the easement. It goes all the way from the frontage road on South Church Street, and it crosses over 4 lots in the South Point Business Campus subdivision. And Mr. Ives and I have researched the deed on this, and in 1972 it was dedicated as a road usage easement for the future dedication of a public street. Well, it's been 45 years and no street's been built, and I'd say that the recording of the South Point Business Campus subdivision has essentially made the construction of a public street on this road usage easement essentially impossible or impractical, to say the least. At any rate, because there might have been certain expectations of road access set up when that easement was recorded, we decided in the interest of getting public participation, if there was going to be any, and in the interest of making sure that everybody knew what was going on, we did conduct a public hearing on this, just like we would with a right-of-way abandonment at the Planning Commission level. No members of the public participated in that public hearing, and the Planning Commission then recommended approval to the City Council of the abandonment of this road usage easement. So we did attempt to do our due diligence and make sure that that if anybody had an interest in this as a future public street, that they would be heard. So with that, both staff and the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve this mandatory referral request for the abandonment of the road usage easement. And if it's approved, then the applicant will be responsible for getting the city legal department the necessary documents to draw up the quitclaim deed to be recorded. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Don't move. I'm going to get you to do the next item.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions? Mandatory referral in South Point.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Right?
Thank you.
Sorry. I started right at the time you
No problem. You got it.
Leanne.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Can you assist us on the
Sure. I appreciate that there was so
public-
much enthusiasm with that last one. Let's keep the train rolling. We have 5 public hearings to schedule that were all conducted by the Planning Commission on December the 6th. I won't bother reading them. They're right there on the agenda. All 5 of these public hearings were handled in one night. There was, I believe the Planning Commission meeting lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. So I believe that all 5 of these public hearings can be accommodated in one city council meeting. Staff would recommend January 25th for the public hearing date for all 5 public hearings. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And checking your calendars, is that okay with everyone? 25th of January?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Consider recommendations of the principal planner, Murfreesboro Design Guidelines. Mrs. Green.
Thank you. I am most excited to be standing here now and very proud because you and Mayor tasked me and the planning department with something. You tasked us with coming up with and adopting design guidelines that would be applicable citywide, and that's what we've done. You should have couriered to you a copy of the design guidelines. It's available digitally as well. And of course, you are a part of a workshop in which we studied this item. In 2007, the city took similar efforts to prepare design guidelines, but decided it wasn't the right time to adopt them. And then in 2015, as I mentioned, you did task the planning department and myself with reviving that document and making it current. And that's exactly what we did with Reagan Smith and Randy Caldwell, who's here with us this evening, and H. Michael Hyman, who's architect who advised on the project as well. We worked with the steering committee to come up with a document that was relevant to Murfreesboro today, and we've divided it into sections, which include introduction, public streets network, site design, landscape, and architectural design. And I think we've made it user-friendly and reader-friendly. At least I hope that's what we've done. And we presented this, of course, to Council and Planning Commission in a joint workshop. At that workshop, the Planning Commission and City Council shared concern to the steering committee regarding a sidewalk policy we had. So we took the sidewalk policy and we removed it. And I'll be willing to bring that back to you as a separate matter in the future, but we didn't want that to be a part of this document because you had concerns at the time. So what you have before you does not have the sidewalk policy that we discussed, which was to be put in at the initial phase of development. But the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing for this matter on November 29th, and their recommendation to you is unanimous that you do, well, I guess they adopted it, but that you do pass this resolution, which is similar to what you've done for our comprehensive plans and our studies for the Bottoms and Highlands area of acknowledgement and support. And I know Councilman LaLance was on this steering committee and had a very active role, and I appreciate all your help in guiding me and the members of our team and coming up with something. If you have questions about this, I'm most happy to answer them for you. Mr. Caldwell, as always, is prepared with a PowerPoint presentation if you'd like one. However, it's not necessary if you don't think so, because I know you've gone through this material several times. But if you'd like, we're ready to present that to you. Otherwise, we'd like for you to pass this resolution of acknowledgement and support.
Thank you, Mrs. Green.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Consider for adoption Resolution 17R31 in acknowledgement and support of the City of Murfreesboro Design Guidelines.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Consider recommendations of the Park and Recreation Director, request to reassign vacant full-time position at Patterson Park.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Skels Harris, members of council, we're continually seeking ways to increase the efficiency and effectiveness in how Parks and Recreation offers our programs, services, and facilities to the public. According with this, right now we have currently have a vacant position at Patterson Park Community Center. It's an administrative support specialist. I'm requesting that we replace this position with an assistant recreation facility coordinator. I want to make very clear we're not requesting a reclassification for an individual. However, we're retasking a position, so we'll be eliminating the administrative support specialist and want to implement an assistant recreation facility coordinator. The requested assistant recreation facility coordinator will have additional responsibilities, including oversight of point-of-sale software, generating attendance and revenue reports, promoting and coordinating reservations of rental venues such as our pool, theater, gymnasiums, meeting rooms, and dining room. We'll also lead the Service Excellence Initiative at Patterson Park Community Center. Making these adjustments now, we believe, will eliminate our need to come back to you to request an additional full-time position in the 18-19 operating budget. And it also makes good strategic, operational, structural sense. This adjustment will be funded through in the current budget by vacancies that we had saved over the course of the year. We appreciate you considering this recommendation, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions or comments?
Move we approve the recommendation.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Consider recommendations of the Human Resource Director, proposal for stop-loss insurance.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. As an item for the regular agenda, it's requested that council approve funding for the renewal of the stop-loss insurance contract. The contract is proposed to become effective January 1, 2018 through December 31st, 2018. The city's current contract for stop-loss insurance is held by Blue RE of Tennessee and expires on December 31st, 2017. An invitation to bid was presented by the Purchasing Department on November 6, 2017. The city received one bid, which was from Blue RE of Tennessee. The bidder was determined to be responsive and responsible. Based on a review of the bid options and a recommendation from the city's benefit consultant, Hub International, the city recommends stop-loss coverage with an individual specific deductible of $150,000 and a $200,000 aggregating specific deductible. These are the same deductibles that we currently have. The proposal includes no contingencies, no lasers, and a 45% rate cap maximum increase at renewal. The city budgeted $486,000 for stop-loss reinsurance for fiscal year 2018. Based on actual claim dollars through December 2017 and a 6-month forecast through June 2018, the estimated cost for fiscal year 2018 would be $515,580. This signifies a 6.09% increase over the original budget. Part of the increase is due to additional covered lives. And while this represents a slight increase to budget, the city did receive over $367,000 in stop-loss reimbursements this year. The city manager and purchasing director concur with this recommendation. It is recommended that City Council approve the proposal by Blue Reed of Tennessee and authorize the city manager to approve the contract effective January 1, 2018. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments?
I move for approval.
Second.
You know, it may have should have said, consider recommendations from the new Human Resources Director, Pam Russell. Congratulations. I don't think I've had a chance to talk to you since you got your new position.
Thank you, sir.
I was going to get to that. Thank you. Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Russell. Consider recommendations of the city engineer.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. Have a couple items for you tonight. The first item is a change order for Middle Tennessee Boulevard improvements, Main Street to Greenland Drive. That project currently is progressing well and is scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2018. As part of the construction, the main chilled water line that serves the university will have to be lowered. The original design anticipated the work could be completed during cooler months and air conditioning wouldn't be a concern. However, the chilled water system remains critical to Murphy Center due to the hardwood floor. Therefore, additional valves are needed to isolate the chilled water system in this area so the temperature can still be controlled in Murphy Center. Contractors has also revised their schedule in order to minimize the impact on the MTSU, which necessitates an additional 45 days to the contract time. The change order request is for an additional $25,499.94, which revises the construction contract to $15,811,859.54 and adds 45 days to the contract time. The contract has multiple funding sources, including federal, local, with MTSU and the city's TML loan or bond issues being the local. And this additional amount would be funded through the local share. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Reclassification of design services for Lytle Street Phase 2, Barker Street to Church Street.
Yes, this is in regards to our current construction project on Lytle Street, the section between Barker Street to North Church Street. Weiser Consultants has provided multiple additional services for the design contract at staff's request. Some of these services include revisions to the traffic control plan, additional coordination with the project team for the judicial building, additional coordination with third-party utilities, drainage design, site design for the adjacent businesses due to project impacts, and coordination with the county for work at their facilities. That's been impacted by this project. Some of these services were originally invoiced as contractual services in error. They should have actually been invoiced as additional services. Weiser Company provided a letter detailing these services that's attached for your review, and they total $22,334. The amount of the design contract will remain at $499,208, but staff estimates the total amount of additional services provided to date to be at about $150,000. This will include the reclassification of the $22,334. The total amount of the professional services for design and construction administration is estimated for the construction project at $649,208. Just want to add, our goal typically for consulting services on these construction projects is about 10%. This does go over slightly for the $5.3 million construction project, but I would say that it's in keeping with the complexity of the project, with multiple projects going on in the area, and also the fact that it's in the downtown area, which obviously we run into quite a bit of unforeseen design conflicts. With that, our staff recommends the approval of the reclassification of the design services to additional services. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
Hearing none, move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Thank you so much. Consider recommendations of the Transportation Director, authorization to execute project charter and resolution of support I-24 Smart Corridor Project Resolution 17R30, TDOT project number 98302-1138-04, PN 125205000.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and members of the council. Interstate 24 is an integral part of the region's transportation network and a major route for commuters and freight. Traffic volumes along this corridor have experienced exponential growth in recent years, which I think everyone knows that, right? To respond to the increased traffic demands, the Tennessee Department of Transportation has initiated an active traffic management pilot project along the I-24 corridor named the I-24 Smart Corridor in partnership with the local agencies to integrate freeway and arterial roadway elements. The purpose of the I-24 Smart Corridor project serves to develop, implement and deploy a comprehensive systems management strategy in order to create a balanced, responsive, and equitable system that will monitor and control traffic, share information with the public, improve system and travel time reliability, support modal shifts, and improve the safety, efficiency, maintenance, and operation and mobility of all users for the benefit of all communities along the corridor. TDOT is responsible for the operation and management of I-24, and arterial roadways are managed by local agencies. This project charter represents agreements on key concepts of project development for the I-24 Smart Corridor project between TDOT, Metro Nashville, Davidson County, City of Laverne, Town of Smyrna, City of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, Nashville MPO, Nashville MTA, RTA, as well as the TMA out of Franklin, Metropolitan Nashville Police, Tennessee Highway Patrol, and the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office. This is a working document and may be modified as appropriate by written agreement of all parties. Based on the project charter, the project is being funded by a combination of state and federal funds. No local funds is being requested from the local agencies. The project is included in the Nashville Area MPO's 2017 through 2020 Transportation Improvement Program. There is no appropriation of city funds required at this time. As the project progresses, city staff will participate with state and other local officials to assure the project's benefits to the city are maximized and the project's objectives are timely achieved. With that said, we recommend the authorization to execute the project charter and resolution.
I'm going to see your numbers
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to see your numbers in my sleep, I'm telling you. Adopt resolution, sorry, any questions or comments?
I had an opportunity to come to one of the meetings, and if you want to get over your head in talking traffic, these folks know what they're doing, but we had some real competent folks, and they held a meeting here in our chamber. And I came just to try to get my hands around what they were going to talk about, but it didn't take long for me to kind of get over my head. There's some real competent folks working on this, and it's the collaboration and the coordination of this effort from all the municipalities and TDOT to make this work, and it's something certainly I think that's timely for us to be a part of, and I think I would move to approve the recommendation.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye. Approval of letter from Mayor and City Council to TDOT regarding development of city's ADA transition plan.
In December of 2016, the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration issued a statewide planning finding for Tennessee, which certifies the transportation planning process is being carried out in accordance with all applicable requirements, including compliance with American with Disability Act of 1919 and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This includes city-owned facilities as well as city-owned right-of-ways, which includes sidewalk, handicap ramps, traffic signals. TDOT must ensure that every city and county with 50 employees or more must have an ADA transition plan and self-evaluation in order to receive transportation funds prior to approval of the fiscal year 2020 and through 2023. Statewide Transportation Improvement Program and the 2020 statewide planning funding. Failure to do so could result in loss of federal funding. To achieve this requirement, TDOT has issued the following schedule for the city's ADA transition plan and self-evaluation. December 2016, city must provide TDOT with documentation stating they have named a qualified person for their ADA coordinator with contact information and developed and published an ADA grievance procedure. That has been done. Robert Holtz is our ADA coordinator. December 2017, city must provide a written letter from mayor outlining the development of their transition plan and must be adopted by the city council. That's why we're here. September 2018, city must provide documentation showing they have completed or are making significant progress toward completing an ADA transition plan and self-evaluation. And December 2019, plan has to be completed. The current request does not require funding. City Council has approved $200,000 out of State Street Aid in this year's budget to employ a consultant to begin developing the ADA transition plan for the city. This proposal will be presented to you at a later date. With that said, we recommend that City Council approve the letter to TDOT as well as adopting the resolution. And I'm available to answer any questions. We also have Mr. Griffith with our engineering department, and two of our other 80. We have Pam Russell and also Adam Tucker.
Can we do that with one motion? Resolution and approve the letter? We need to do that separately. C, 13C and D.
Two separate motions then.
And on 13C, I'll move for approval of the letter to TDOT.
Second. Oh, okay.
So we don't need an approval.
Right. The resolution authorizes the letter is what Adam said, so we should be good.
All right, scratch that motion. I'll move to consider, or to approve Resolution 17R32.
We're good.
You still second?
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Yes.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade? Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye.
Before we move on, can I just clarify, did item A need a vote?
I was told
We
it
voted
did
on
not.
B. I understand. I'm asking you, because it says authorization to execute project charter and resolution. I don't know if the resolution also authorized to execute the project charter.
Thanks, Mrs. Wright.
Well, I thought the same, but there was a question from David and thought we'd ask.
Adam and Craig are looking at it.
Well, I think we can go back and do a motion on to authorize the execution of the project charter, and we passed the resolution, so obviously that's been authorized. But we can, if we can get a motion to authorize the project charter.
Move for approval on 13A.
Second.
Mrs. Wright.
Mr. LaLance?
Yes.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade? Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye.
Thank you.
Now we need a motion on the amendment to contractor S&W Electrical Contractors, Inc.
Yes, S&W Electric Contractor has contracted with the city for numbers of years, maintaining our traffic signals, CCTV system, flashing school zone, fiber optic cables, and other traffic-related infrastructure. The current base contract was awarded by City Council on July 11, 2013. We have since extended their contract through Amendment 3. That was through December 31st of 2017, which is 17 days away. S&W has requested to renew this contract for the upcoming calendar year. The renewal stipulates requirements that the conditions of the original contract are met in order for renewal to be validated, which means they're maintaining the same cost in 2013. So with that said, I would recommend approval of the contract.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Kerr, could I ask you a few more questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr. Consider recommendations of the Water Resource Director for sewer services to Veterans Parkway and SR 840 Shelton Square participation in proposed special sanitary sewer assessment district SSSAD for recruitment and Murfreesboro West Park proposed SSSAD.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris, City Council, thank you. I did notice the SSAD is really sad. I mean, not supposed to be that sad. No, bad joke. I'm presenting two proposals with you tonight. The first involves a participation amount for the development identified as Shelton Square in the amount of $249,590, with the expectation of establishing a sanitary sewer special assessment district affecting the adjoining parcels. And the second involves the concept of the department front-end funding the sanitary sewer infrastructure for the West Park in an amount estimated at $1.7 million, along with the concept of establishing a sanitary sewer assessment district to recoup those capital costs as well. So I do want to go through. This is a large amount of money, and it's a significant area to serve with sewer. So I wanted to kind of give you the highlights of what to expect, what properties are expected to be served, and the amount of the assessments. So we've got two anchor projects here. One is the Shelton Square development, 770 units. The other anchor project is the 121.5 acre West Park. We met with Huddleston Steel and SEC about the developable properties around both of these anchor projects. You can see there's around 510 units expected to develop around Shelton Square, and don't have the acreage right in front of me, but there's a lot of acreage around the West Park that's anticipated, some as single-family units, or some as residential, and some as commercial. So, Shelton Square project, we're looking at participating in the 770 units is $853,000 for the infrastructure for sewer. For the total 1,280 units, we're looking at $1.1 million. That's where we come up with the participation amount of the $249,590, and we would expect the 510 units to pick up that additional cost through an assessment. Doing some quick calculations, 510 or 249,000 divided by 510 is roughly $490. You put time value of money on there, you're looking at about $600 per unit. So that would be the recommendations regarding this that I'm asking for approval from you tonight, is to participate in the upsizing of the sewer pump station and force main in the Shelton Square subdivision in the amount of $249,590, and establish a sewer assessment district to recoup that participating amount, anticipated at $600 per single family unit. That would be my first recommendation and request for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye.
Regarding the 121.5 acre West Park, we're looking at front-end funding. The Water Resource Department would front-end fund all of those sewer improvements. So we're requesting approval for that. We're looking at that in the amount of roughly $1.68 million to serve the 277.5 acres. What we would ask the city to do would be to pay their pro rata share up front after those improvements are made. Again, the $1.7 million is an estimate. What the actual number would be, we will find that out at a time in the future. But right now we're looking at roughly $735,000 share for the city's part, and then we would set up the other 156 acres onto to recoup the additional $945,000. Going through the similar calculations, you're looking at about $6,000 per acre for the remaining 277.5 acres. Time value of money puts that at about $7,300 per acre. So again, the city would not be paying, if the city paid up front, they would not be paying those interest costs over that 10-year time frame that we're looking at. So so that's really, again, that's just, I'm asking for a recommendation for us to move forward for the department to front-end fund those sewer improvements with the expectation the city would pay initially, and then we would set up a future sewer assessment district. So I'm available for questions on that.
Any questions or comments?
Hearing none, move for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Thank you very much.
Letter from City Recorder, Finance Director regarding commercial credit card account with SunTrust Bank. Mrs. Wright.
We have never had a city credit card, and we are finally in a position we can avoid it no longer. Our travel agency has gone out of business, and we cannot attain another travel agency's services without having a credit card to book the travel. So I have contacted SunTrust, and they are requesting some documents be signed, one of which we need a resolution from council authorizing that. The city attorney has reviewed that, made some changes, and I also sent that to SunTrust, and they said those changes work for them. So my recommendation is to approve Resolution 17R33 and allow us to move forward with obtaining a city credit card.
Any questions or comments? Consider for adoption Resolution 17R33 designating certain officials to execute the necessary agreements to enter into a commercial credit card account with SunTrust Bank.
So moved.
Charge it. Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Boards and appointments. Historic Zoning Commission appoint Mr. Bill Jakes to fulfill term of Mr. Paul Cross. Urban Environmental Commission appoint Ms. Cindy Nix to fill vacancy left by Mr. George Hanson. Rutherford County Library Board of Directors appoint Mr. Jimmy Tyson, Mr. Raleigh Holden, Mr. Tim Bolin, and City Council Member Madeline Scales Harris to represent the council.
So move.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Beer permits, Mrs. Wright?
Yes, we have a few tonight. We have a new catering permit for an existing beer holder for a restaurant at 527 West Main Street. That application is in order, and it is ready for us to issue if it is approved tonight. We also have a ownership and name change for a location that's had beer before at 127 Southeast Broad Street. That application is in order. They do need to finish their building codes inspections, so if it's approved tonight, we would issue that permit upon completion of those inspections. Finally, we have an ownership and name change of a location that has had beer before at 2805 Old Fort Parkway Suite Inn. That application is complete except for the building codes inspections, and it is in order otherwise, and we would issue that permit, if approved tonight, once the building code inspections are complete. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Could we get a motion and second?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. We have two recommendations to consider at our next meeting for reappointments. One is the Tennis Committee. Reappoint D. Jernigan Jr., Chris Massaro, and Newton Malloy. And for the Gateway Commission, reappoint Mr. Boyd Evans and Mrs. Kathy Nobles for our next meeting. Payment of statements. Mrs. Wright?
We have a statement tonight that we've had on here before. There were some questions, and we pulled it. It is for the 2017 TSSAA Girls Soccer Tournament. I believe Ms. Jackson and her staff has sent out information on that, so they would like to get that paid, and I have put it back on for consideration.
Move, we pay the bills.
Second.
Mrs. Wright, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris?
Aye. Any other business? This is our last meeting of the year, and I'd like to wish everyone a safe, fun, and happy time with your family and friends. And at this time, I'd like for everyone to bow your heads for a word of prayer. Lord, we come to you as humble as we know how, not because that we deserve to, but just acknowledging your grace and mercy, which we don't deserve. God, you're awesome, and you're God all by yourself. We ask that you forgive us of our sins, known and unknown. And Lord, our city in the past year, we've been through a lot this year, and we thank you for never leaving us. And recently, Lord, when the devil showed up in our city, you stepped up and you showed out, and you allowed us to come together in love and unity. And my prayer is that we all commit to love more, give more, and for good health as we move forward into 2018. And Lord, bless the sick, shut in, the bereaved, the homeless, the safety providers, the veterans. Just bless our city and everyone in our city, Lord. This is our prayer we ask in your darling son's name. Amen.
Amen.
We stand adjourned.
Merry Christmas, you guys. Well, I'll see y'all next.